They say the moment that broke the galactic sovereignty wasn't a battle, wasn't a siege, wasn't even a particularly clever strategy. No, it was the exact second when humanity's representative Marcus Webb responded to our declaration of total war by shrugging, pulling out a cigarette and asking if we had a light. I am Ambassador Kelreth of the Vryn Sovereignty, third Talon of the High Council, bearer of 700 commendations, witness to the subjugation of 43 species. My carapace gleams with the ceremonial markings of conquest. My credentials are, shall we say, impeccable. And on that particular Tuesday or Wednesday or whatever primitive name the humans gave to their planetary rotation cycle, I was about to deliver the most important declaration of my distinguished career. The Terran diplomatic station hung in orbit around their homeworld like a tin can held together with optimism and what I suspected was actual tape. Our intelligence had been very clear about humanity's technological inferiority. Their ships were slow, their weapons were crude, their entire civilization had only just managed to stumble out of their own star system like a drunk leaving a tavern, bumping into walls and apologizing to furniture. Perfect targets. Really. I had rehearsed my speech for 3 weeks. The sovereignty does not do anything without proper ceremony, proper gravitas, proper fear inducement. We had conquered 672 worlds. We had broken empires that had stood for millennia. We had reduced proud warrior cultures to weeping supplicants with nothing more than a demonstration of our fleet's firepower. The humans would be no different. My entourage of 12 ceremonial guards flanked me as we marched through the station's corridors. I had expected gleaming metal, advanced architecture, perhaps some hint of the military readiness that comes when a species knows annihilation approaches their door. Instead, I got beige walls, flickering lights, and what appeared to be a coffee stain on the ceiling. A coffee stain on the ceiling. I did not want to know how that happened, and yet I could not stop wondering. A human female passed us in the corridor carrying a stack of data pads. She glanced at our procession, at our ceremonial armor, at the 12 guards whose very presence had made hardened warriors void their waste organs in terror. She nodded, just nodded, like we were colleagues passing in a hallway during lunch break. Conference room 3 is down the hall, second door on your left, she said, not breaking stride. I felt the first tickle of unease in my secondary nervous system. The conference room was, and I say this with no exaggeration, the most aggressively mundane space I had ever witnessed. A long table, chairs that had seen better decades, a water dispenser in the corner that gurgled ominously, motivational posters on the walls with phrases like "hang in there," accompanied by images of earth fauna clinging to branches, and sitting at the head of the table, feet propped up on the surface, was Marcus Webb. He was not what I expected. Human representatives in our intelligence briefs were always described in military terms: defensive postures, aggressive stances. Marcus Webb looked like he had just rolled out of bed, decided clothing was optional but settled for a rumpled suit anyway, and had not seen a grooming implement in several rotations. His hair was a mess of brown that defied what I understood about human grooming standards. His tie was loosened. His jacket was draped over the back of his chair. He was scrolling through a datapad with one hand while the other held what appeared to be a beverage in a container that proclaimed "Galaxy's okayest diplomat." He looked up as we entered. "Ambassador Kelreth, right?" he said, not bothering to remove his feet from the table.
"Yeah, sorry about the room.
The nice one is being fumigated. Someone brought space lobster for lunch yesterday and, well, long story. Have a seat." This was not protocol. This was not how species receiving declarations of war behaved. Where was the fear? Where was the desperate scrambling for diplomatic solutions? Where was the dawning horror that their civilization was about to be erased from the cosmic record? I straightened my ceremonial robes, adjusted my rank insignia, and prepared to deliver the speech that would bring this bizarre human to his knees. "Marcus Webb, representative of the Terran Collective," I began, my voice resonating with the harmonic frequencies designed to inspire dread. "I come before you as the voice of the Vryn Sovereignty, the greatest power this galaxy has ever known. Our fleets number in the thousands, our soldiers are without equal, our technology makes yours look like children playing with sticks in the mud." Marcus took a sip of his beverage. "For too long, humanity has existed on the periphery of galactic civilization, ignored, dismissed, beneath notice. But your recent expansion into the Kepler sector has violated treaty agreements established long before your species learned to harness fire. Your presence is an affront, your existence, inconvenient." I paused for dramatic effect. Marcus scratched his chin. "Therefore," I continued, my voice rising to the ceremonial pitch that had made 3 species surrender before firing a single shot. By the authority vested in me by the High Council of the Vryn Sovereignty, I hereby declare that a state of total war now exists between our peoples. You have 1 standard rotation to prepare your surrender terms. Resist, and your species will be reduced to a footnote in the galactic historical records. A cautionary tale about the consequences of defying the natural order. I finished, my chest swelling with the satisfaction of a declaration perfectly delivered. The silence that followed should have been filled with shock, with horror, with the sound of a human's world crumbling around him. Instead, Marcus Webb reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a small rectangular box, and extracted a cylindrical object that I would later learn was called a cigarette. He put it between his lips, patted his pockets, then looked up at me with an expression of mild inconvenience. "You got a light?" I stared at Marcus Webb for what felt like an eternity. My translator implant had to be malfunctioning. Surely, this human had not just responded to a declaration of total war, the annihilation of his entire species, with a request for combustion assistance. I managed, my vocal synthesizer crackling with confusion. "A light," Marcus repeated, wiggling the cigarette between his fingers. "Fire. Spark. You know, to get this thing going." I left my lighter in my other jacket. One of my ceremonial guards, Thorvin, stepped forward and ignited a small plasma torch typically used for ceremonial executions. Marcus leaned in without hesitation, lit his cigarette from a weapon designed to vaporize organic matter, and took a long drag. "Thanks, big guy," he said, exhaling smoke that swirled around my sensory organs. "So, war, huh? That is what you said, right? Just want to make sure I heard you correctly because the audio in here is terrible. We have been asking facilities to fix it for months." "Yes," I said, my mandibles clicking in agitation. "War. Total war. The complete and utter destruction of your species unless you surrender immediately." "Okay, cool, Marcus said, nodding like I had just informed him about a schedule change. "Quick question, when you say total war, are we talking like scorched earth policy, or is this more of a targeted military engagement thing? Because that changes the paperwork considerably." "Paperwork?" He was asking about paperwork. "The sovereignty does not concern itself with paperwork," I hissed. "We concern ourselves with conquest." "Right. But see, we do concern ourselves with paperwork," Marcus said, flicking ash into a tray that appeared to be made from a reclaimed engine part. "Got to file the proper forms with the Terran Defense Council, notify the colonies, update our threat assessment matrices. You understand, bureaucracy?" No, I did not understand, not even slightly. "Do you comprehend what I have just told you?" I demanded, my vocal harmonics shifting into the rage frequency. "Your species is about to be wiped from existence." "Yeah, I got that part," Marcus said. "Just trying to understand the timeline here. You said 1 standard rotation for surrender terms. That is 26 hours in Galactic Standard, right? Not your home planet's rotation, because I remember the Klexan Accord had that whole issue where they used their own planetary cycles and everyone showed up 3 days late to the peace talks." Behind me, I heard one of my guards make a confused chittering sound. 26 hours, yes, I confirmed, wondering why I was confirming anything. "Perfect," Marcus said, making a note on his datapad. "That gives us until Thursday afternoon station time. I have got a dentist appointment Thursday morning, but I should be done by then. So, just to clarify, you want us to surrender, or you are going to attack?" "Both," I said. "Surrender, or be destroyed." "Okay, but those are 2 different response protocols on our end," Marcus explained, taking another drag. "If it is surrender, I have got to loop in the civilian government, get the colony representatives involved, probably convene an emergency session of the Terran Congress. If it is an attack, that is a military response, which means I just forward this to Admiral Chen and let her handle it." "How are you this calm?" I exploded, my carapace plates rising in threat display. "Do you not understand what the Vryn sovereignty is? We have crushed empires, we have burned worlds, we have made species beg for the mercy of extinction." Marcus stubbed out his cigarette, immediately lit another one. "Look, Ambassador Kelrith, I am sure you are very scary," he said. "It is just that, well, it is Tuesday. I had my coffee about 3 hours ago and it is starting to wear off. Jenkins is supposed to bring donuts to the staff meeting at 1400, and if I miss those I am going to be genuinely upset. So if we could just nail down the specifics here, that would be great." A door at the far end of the conference room opened. A human male entered, carrying a box. "Hey Marcus, we got those quarterly reports you owe." "Oh sorry, did not realize you had company," the human said, noticing our ceremonial battle armor and weapons for apparently the first time. "No problem, Rodriguez," Marcus said. "Just a war declaration. Nothing urgent. You can leave those on the side table." Rodriguez set down the box, gave us a polite nod, and left. He just left. I had declared war on his species, and he just dropped off paperwork and left like this was a normal administrative day. "So, about those surrender terms," Marcus continued, consulting his datapad. "Do you have a standard template, or are we negotiating from scratch? Because if it is from scratch, I am going to need to bring in legal, and Linda does not work Tuesday." "There are no negotiations," I seethed. "You surrender unconditionally, or you die." "Unconditional." "Got it," Marcus said, typing. "That actually simplifies things. Fewer forms. Silver lining. Oh, one more thing, do you guys have any dietary restrictions? For prisoners of war, I mean. We are signatories to the Geneva Convention, well, the Galactic equivalent anyway, and we need to know if you have got allergies or religious prohibitions or whatever." "Why would we be the prisoners?" I demanded. Marcus looked up from his datapad, and for the first time I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not fear, not anger. Something worse. Amusement. "Just covering all the bases, Ambassador," he said. "You know how it is. Gotta be thorough." Down the corridor, I heard laughter. Human laughter. Someone had told a joke. Someone was having a normal conversation about, if my translator was working correctly, something called a fantasy football league. My species had just declared war on these people, and they were discussing sports. "I need to make some calls," Marcus said, standing and stretching. "You are welcome to wait here, or there is a cafeteria on level 7. Food is not great, but the coffee is adequate. We will have our official response ready by your deadline." He walked toward the door, paused, turned back. "Oh, and Ambassador, welcome to humanity. Things are going to get weird." Then he left. He just left me standing there in that beige conference room, with my ceremonial guards, my carefully prepared threats, and the growing, creeping sensation that the Vren sovereignty had just made the biggest mistake in its 6,000-year history. I found Marcus Webb in the cafeteria 20 minutes later, sitting at a table with 3 other humans, eating something that looked vaguely toxic and smelled worse. My translator identified it as meatloaf. I did not want to know what loaf of meat meant, but the universe seemed determined to show me anyway. "Ambassador," Marcus said, gesturing to an empty chair. "Grab a seat. This is Patterson Chen, and O'Malley. Patterson handles colonial affairs, Chen is military liaison, and O'Malley is just here for the entertainment." "Someone declared war on us," O'Malley said cheerfully, raising a beverage cup in mock celebration. "It has been, what, 6 months since the last one?" 8, Chen corrected. A woman with sharp eyes and graying hair pulled into a severe bun. The Hextar Confederation backed down before it got official. 6 months. 8 months. They spoke of war declarations like they were routine maintenance schedules. "I need clarification," I said, my patience evaporating like water on a hot plate. "Your species is facing extinction, and you are eating compressed animal proteins in a social setting." "Well, yeah," Marcus said. "I mean, we have got another." He checked his wrist device. 23 hours before your deadline. Plenty of time. Besides, I wanted you to understand something before we send our official response. Context, you know, helps avoid misunderstandings." He pushed a datapad across the table toward me.
That is human history.
"Well, a summary. The full version is about 4 million volumes and counting. Which is weird because we have only been writing things down for like 5,000 years. We are overachievers that way." I looked at the pad. The first entry made my translator sputter. "This says you had a war that lasted 100 years, I said. "Oh, the 100 Years' War. Yeah, that was about succession rights to the French throne. Lasted 116 years, actually. False advertising, really," Marcus said, taking a bite of his meatloaf. "Keep scrolling." I scrolled. 30 Years' War. 7 Years' War. 6-Day War. There is a war here that lasted 38 minutes. Anglo-Zanzibar War, O'Malley supplied helpfully. Shortest war in recorded history. Still counts, though. "You fought a war for 38 minutes, I asked, my sensory organs struggling to process this information. "To be fair, the other side surrendered pretty quick," Marcus said. "But here is the thing, Ambassador. See, you come from a species that fights wars for resources, for territory, for survival. Rational things. Understandable things. We respect that. very logical. He leaned forward, and that amusement in his eyes was back, sharper now. Humans fight wars over everything. We fought wars over religion, wars over economic theory, wars over which inbred royal family had the better claim to a piece of dirt. We fought a war because someone threw a guy out of a window. We fought wars over soccer games. One time we almost went to total nuclear annihilation over pigs. Actual pigs. Farm animals. That cannot be accurate, I said. Chen slid another datapad over. Pig War, 1859 San Juan Islands. Look it up. I looked it up. My translator confirmed it. They had nearly gone to war over a pig. We have been killing each other since before we had proper weapons, Marcus continued. Rocks, sticks, harsh language. We got creative. Then we invented bronze and we killed each other with that. Then iron, then steel, then gunpowder, which was actually invented for fireworks. But we immediately thought, hey, what if we put this in a tube and pointed it at people? Patterson laughed into his coffee. We invented flight. And within a decade we were dropping bombs from planes, Marcus said. We split the atom, and the first thing we did was figure out how to make a weapon out of it. We went to space, and you know what we brought with us? Weapons. Just in case. Every species has weapons, I protested weakly. Sure, Marcus agreed. But most species develop weapons when they meet other species. We developed weapons to fight ourselves. We have been at war somewhere on our planet for 92% of recorded history. There has basically never been a time when humans were not killing other humans somewhere. He pulled up a holographic display showing Earth's history, red markers indicating conflicts. World War I, he said, pointing. 16 million dead. We called it the war to end all wars because surely after that much death we would learn our lesson. The display shifted. World War II. 20 years later. 70 to 85 million dead depending on who is counting. And we learned something important from that one. Peace? I asked hopefully. No. We learned that we could kill each other way more efficiently, Marcus said. See, Ambassador, your sovereignty has conquered 672 worlds. Impressive. Scary. My respect. Genuinely. But Earth has 7.9 billion humans, and before we unified into the Terran Collective, we had 195 separate nations. Some of those nations had been at war with each other for centuries. Some of them are still mad about stuff that happened 1,000 years ago. Chen pulled up another display. Current active human military personnel, 8 million. Reserve forces, 23 million. Civilian population with combat training, approximately 400 million. That is just Earth. The colonies add another 50 million to those numbers. Impossible, I said. No species maintains that level of militarization during peacetime. We do not really have peacetime, O'Malley said. We have pre-war, war, and post-war. It is kind of our thing. Marcus stood up, walked to the window overlooking Earth. The planet rotated slowly below us, blue and green and white, deceptively peaceful. You want to know why we are not scared, Ambassador? He asked. It is because we have been fighting the most dangerous, creative, stubborn, and relentless species in the galaxy for our entire existence. And that species is us. He turned back to face me. We know war, Ambassador Kilrath. We know it intimately. We know its costs, its horrors, its necessities. We have turned it into an art form, a science, a grim specialty. We have more words for war than most species have for love, combat, conflict, battle, skirmish, engagement, campaign, operation, crusade. We have got dissertations on warfare older than your space program. My secondary nervous system was firing alarm signals throughout my body. So when you come here, to this station, with your ceremonial guards and your threats about crushing our species, Marcus said quietly, understand that you are threatening a species that has been trying to crush itself for millennia, and has not succeeded yet. We are really hard to kill, mostly because we have had a lot of practice trying. He sat back down, picked up his fork. Now, the meatloaf is getting cold, and that makes it even worse than it already is. You have got 23 hours until your deadline. I suggest you use them to call your High Council and explain what you have just learned, because, Ambassador, you do not want to find out what happens when humanity stops fighting itself and focuses on someone else. The cafeteria suddenly felt very cold. I retreated to the communication suite my staff had secured on the station, my carapace plates clicking nervously against each other. The conversation with Marcus Webb had unsettled me in ways I could not articulate. I needed guidance. I needed the High Council to tell me this was normal, that all species reacted strangely to war declarations, that my unease was merely an experience. I activated the quantum communicator, and within moments, the holographic forms of the High Council materialized before me. Supreme Commander Vrakthis dominated the center, his scales gleaming with authority. To his left, Strategic Coordinator Maltheme. To his right, Grand Admiral Thorquin. Ambassador Kelrith Vrakthis rumbled. Report, has the human surrender been finalized? No, Supreme Commander, I said carefully. The situation is, complications have arisen. Complications? Maltheme's voice dripped with disdain. They are a barely spacefaring species with primitive weapons and delusions of relevance. What complications could possibly exist? They are not afraid. I said. Silence, then laughter. Thorquin's booming laugh echoed through the communication link. Not afraid? Kellereth, did you forget to activate the harmonic intimidation protocols? Did you stumble over your speech? I delivered the declaration perfectly. I snapped, my patience fraying. They do not care. Their representative asked me for a light for his cigarette. Then he asked about paperwork. Then he went to lunch. Shock, Vrakthis said dismissively. A common response. The prey animal freezes before the predator. They will break soon enough. No. Supreme Commander, you do not understand, I insisted. I have reviewed their historical records. This species has been at war with itself for their entire recorded history. They have conflicts that lasted longer than some civilizations exist. They have killed billions of their own kind. They are not freezing. I believe they are excited. Excited? Maltheme scoffed. Ridiculous. Pull yourself together, Ambassador. You sound hysterical. I am telling you what I have observed, I said, my vocal harmonics rising. Their military liaison discussed casualty figures from their internal conflicts with the same tone one would use to discuss weather patterns. They nearly destroyed themselves with atomic weapons, and they speak of it as a learning experience. Then they are unstable, Vrakthis declared. Better. Unstable enemies make mistakes, or they are experienced, I countered. Supreme Commander, request permission to withdraw the declaration and pursue diplomatic channels. Absolutely not, Vrakthis snarled. The sovereignty does not back down from primitives. We have our reputation to consider. The declaration stands. You have already given them their deadline. We will proceed as planned. But Supreme Commander. Enough, Vrakthis commanded. You have 22 hours remaining. Secure their surrender or prepare for our fleet to demonstrate why 672 worlds bowed before us. High Council out. The communication severed. I stood alone in the suite, my sensory organs twitching with anxiety. They did not believe me. They had not seen Marcus Webb's eyes, had not heard the casual way these humans discussed apocalyptic violence, had not felt the wrongness of a species that treated war like a minor scheduling conflict. I needed more information. I left the suite, moving through the station's corridors with purpose. My auditory sensors picked up conversations, snippets of human dialogue that made my secondary heart beat faster. 2 technicians near a maintenance bay. Did you hear? War declaration. Yeah, got the memo. Peterson in security is practically giddy about it. Think we will get hazard pay this time? Better. Jenkins said they are opening up the combat bonuses again. They were discussing financial incentives. For war. Like it was overtime pay. I passed a recreation area where several humans gathered around a viewing screen. They were watching something, cheering occasionally. That is how you do orbital insertion. One said. No way, the Kendari offensive had better insertion tactics. You are both wrong. Operation Skyfall 2089 North African Campaign. Textbook. They were reviewing military history. For fun. I found myself outside another conference room. The door was slightly ajar, and I heard Marcus Webb's voice inside. I should not have eavesdropped. Diplomatic protocol forbade it. But my survival instincts overrode protocol.
Gad Mo-chan, that is right. War declaration from the Rin sovereignty, Marcus was saying, his tone casual, almost bored. No, they gave us 24 hours, so we have got time. I figured you would want to start the mobilization sequences though. Get ahead of it. A pause. Reserve fleets? Yeah, probably a good idea. And go ahead and ping the colonial militias, let them know this is not a drill. How long for full operational readiness? 72 hours. Perfect. That gives us a 48-hour buffer after their deadline. Another pause. Orbital defense platforms. Sure, bring those online. And Chen,
Maybe dust off the contingency plans from the war games we ran last year, the ones against a technologically superior force. Yeah, those. Because according to their propaganda, they are technologically superior. He laughed. Actually laughed. Right, I know. But let them think that for now. Element of surprise in all. Oh, and activate the deep space monitoring network. I want to know when their fleet moves, where it moves, and what they had for breakfast. No, I am serious about the breakfast thing. Intelligence matters. What about the civilian evacuations? Someone else in the room asked. Optional, Marcus replied. Send out the recommendations, but you know how colonists are. Half of them will want to stay and fight. Make sure they sign the waivers. Legal is very insistent about the waivers. Weapons release protocols. Full authorization. If it shoots, explodes, or generally ruins someone's day, it is greenlit, but keep the antimatter warheads locked for now. We will escalate to those if needed. Antimatter warheads. They had antimatter warheads and were treating them as an escalation option, not a final deterrent. Should we contact the other human factions? Another voice asked. The independents, the frontier groups, already sent the messages, Marcus said. They will come. Nothing unites humans like someone else picking a fight with us. It is basically our love language. I backed away from the door, my limbs trembling. They were not preparing to surrender. They were preparing to fight. No, worse, they were preparing to win. The casualness of it, the efficiency, the way they discussed mobilizing their entire species like it was routine. It spoke of a civilization that had done this before, many times before. I returned to my quarters and began composing an urgent message to the High Council. They needed to understand. They needed to see what I was seeing. But I knew, deep in my genetic memory and the parts of my brain that still remembered being prey animals on my homeworld, that they would not listen. And by the time they realized their mistake, it would be far too late. The response arrived precisely on schedule. 26 hours after my initial declaration, to the minute, a human aide entered my temporary quarters carrying a physical document sealed with an actual wax stamp. Like they were playing at being some ancient civilization instead of responding to their imminent destruction. Official response from the Terran Collective, the aide said, handing me the envelope. Have a nice day. Have a nice day. While delivering a document that would determine the fate of billions, I broke the seal with trembling manipulators and began to read. My translator worked overtime, and with each passing sentence my secondary heart rate increased. To Ambassador Kelrith, 3rd Talon of the High Council, Vran Sovereignty, from the Terran Collective Diplomatic Corps, Military Command and Associated Colonial Governments, Formal response to Declaration of Hostilities, document reference number TC-MIL 20, date, Thursday, October 23, 2025. Terran Standard Calendar. Dear Ambassador Kelrith, thank you for your declaration of war dated October 22, 2025. We acknowledge receipt of said declaration and have processed it through the appropriate governmental channels. Please find our official response below. Section 1. Acceptance of terms. The Terran Collective hereby formally acknowledges and accepts the state of war between our peoples as declared by the Vrin Sovereignty. We recognize this as a legally binding declaration under the Galactic Convention on Armed Conflict, Article 7 subsections A through D. We note your request for unconditional surrender. After careful consideration and consultation with relevant stakeholders, we must respectfully decline this request. Section 2. Operational Timeline. Please be advised of the following timeline for military operations. Current status, DEFCON 2. Transitioning to DEFCON 1 as of 0600 hours October 20. Mobilization. Reserve forces activated. Colonial militias notified. Civilian evacuation protocols initiated for optional participation. Readiness. Terran Collective forces will achieve full operational combat readiness within 72 hours of this correspondence. We propose beginning formal hostilities at 0800 hours October 27, 25. Terran Standard Time to allow both parties adequate preparation. We believe in fair play, and would prefer to engage your forces when both sides are ready. Please confirm if this timeline is acceptable, or provide an alternative schedule that suits your operational requirements. I read that paragraph 3 times. They were asking if the invasion schedule worked for us. They were proposing a meeting time for mutual annihilation like it was a business appointment. Section 3. Rules of Engagement. The Terran Collective commits to operating within the established protocols of the Galactic Convention on Armed Conflict. We expect the Vrin Sovereignty to do the same. Specific adherence to the following is required. No targeting of civilian populations without military necessity. No use of biological or chemical weapons prohibited under Convention Article 12. Proper treatment of prisoners of war, according to Convention standards. Regarding prisoners of war, we have prepared detention facilities compliant with Galactic standards. Please provide information regarding dietary requirements, restrictions and allergies, atmospheric preferences, temperature ranges, and gravity requirements, religious or cultural accommodations needed, medical needs specific to VRIN physiology. We want to ensure comfortable and humane conditions for any VRIN personnel who may come into our custody. They were preparing prison camps, for us, with dietary accommodation forms. Section 4. Communications Protocols. We propose establishing a secure diplomatic channel to remain open during hostilities for the following purposes: negotiation of ceasefires or truces, coordination of prisoner exchanges, discussion of surrender terms should either party wish to pursue that option, emergency communications regarding civilian matters. Ambassador Kelrith, you will remain our primary point of contact unless you designate an alternative representative. Section 5. Declaration of Intent. Let it be clearly stated for the record. The Terran Collective did not seek this conflict. We harbor no particular animosity toward the VRIN sovereignty or its people. However, we will defend our sovereignty, our colonies, and our citizens with every resource at our disposal. We are prepared for a long engagement should that become necessary. We are equally prepared for a short one. The duration and intensity of this conflict rests largely in your hands. We hope wisdom prevails. However, we are ready if it does not. Section 6. Closing Remarks. Once again, we thank you for your professionalism in delivering your declaration. We recognize this is likely an uncomfortable situation for all parties involved. Should you require anything during your stay at Terran Station Gamma, please do not hesitate to contact station services. We have included a care package with this response containing Earth coffee, various snack items, and a datapad loaded with human entertainment media. We recommend the historical documentaries. Context is important. Respectfully and with hopes for minimal casualty. Marcus Webb, Chief Diplomatic Representative, Terran Collective. Admiral Jessica Chen, Terran Defense Command. Secretary General Patricia Okonkwo, Terran Collective. The care package sat on my desk. Actual physical items, coffee, snacks, entertainment media. They had declared their readiness to fight a war to the death and included a gift basket. My hands shook as I activated my communicator to contact the High Council. This was wrong. Everything about this was wrong. Species that were about to be conquered did not ask about dietary restrictions for their future prisoners. They did not propose convenient scheduling for mutual destruction. They did not include snack foods with their military response. Supreme Commander Vrakthis, I said when the connection established, I have received the human response. Sir, I strongly urge reconsideration of our position. These beings are not. They are not reacting appropriately. They are treating this war as an administrative function. Psychological warfare, Vrakthis said dismissively, attempting to seem unafraid to mask their terror. Pathetic. How long until their surrender? Sir, they are not surrendering. They have mobilized their military. They have proposed a battle schedule. They are asking about our dietary needs for when they take our soldiers prisoner. Absurd. Our soldiers will not be taken prisoner. That is what they said too, sir, about their soldiers. For the first time I heard uncertainty in Vrakthis's voice. What exactly did their response say? I transmitted the document. The silence that followed lasted approximately 30 seconds, which felt like 30 years. This is a joke, Vrakthis finally said, but his voice lacked conviction. A human attempt at humor. Sir, their fleets are mobilizing. This is not a joke. Impossible. We have 672 conquered worlds. We have the most powerful military in this sector. We have never lost. Yes, sir, I said quietly. Neither have they. They have only ever fought themselves. And sir, they are very, very good at it. I could hear Vrakthis breathing, his respiratory system working harder than normal. Maintain your position, Ambassador, he finally said. I need to consult with the Strategic Council. The communication ended. I looked at the care package, at the document, at the polite, professional, utterly terrifying response from a species that treated war like paperwork, and I realized, with horrifying clarity, that the VRIN sovereignty had not declared war on humanity. We had accidentally declared war on the galaxy's apex predator, the only species that had spent millennia fighting itself for practice. and they had just politely accepted. 3 months later, after the treaties were signed and the sovereignty's fleets limped home with 30% casualties, I still think about that moment, that exact second when Marcus Webb asked me for a light, when I should have recognized the truth. You do not ask for a cigarette when someone threatens your extinction. You ask for a cigarette when you are mildly annoyed by an interruption. We never stood a chance. We declared war on a species that had been practicing warfare on itself for 10,000 years. A species that discussed orbital bombardment over lunch. A species that included comfort items with their military responses. The galaxy learned an important lesson that day, though most still refused to accept it. Humanity was never the prey species stumbling into galactic civilization. They were the apex predator finally noticing we existed, and we had made the catastrophic mistake of getting their attention.